about. This is a guy who once joked right after the Columbine massacre that the killers should have raped the students before killing them. Not that I like that Stern, but this pendulum swing from saying the most tasteless thing in the universe to putting your balls in a Tic Tac container. You gotta wonder what's going on here. It's striking that the king of the most misogynistic humor ever now turns into a breathless over a progressive, hopelessly shallow candidate.
As Greg Gutfeld transforms from an edgy rebel into a whispered member of the establishment he used to ridicule, he cuts at Howard Stern like a chef slicing into a microwave steak that used to be prime rib. Gutfeld doesn't hold back in a criticism. So incisive it pierces the nostalgia, he reveals the transition from daring shock jock to comfortable scripted echo chamber. Stern desired reinvention, but Gutfeld gives him a mirror instead, and it's not positive.
Say this, Dagan. I thank God for Howard Stern because he does make me feel normal by comparison. Because I'm like the Fox recluse. I don't do anything. I don't go anywhere. But he makes me look like, Pete Davidson on a...
Yeah, he's a germaphobe. Like, his wife rescues cats. That's her job, apparently, her thing. But you can get toxoplasmosis.
That's true.
Cryptosporidiosis.
AIDS. No, you can't. But
you can't get.
When Greg Gutfeld targets Howard Stern, it's not just a roast. After the shock jock rebel who flipped off the establishment, it's a full-fledged cultural dissection laced with humor, irony, and a surgical precision that only Gutfeld can deliver. Gutfeld has a knack for tearing down cultural icons who try. A little too hard to stay relevant.
On his radio show, Howard Stern defended wokeism, saying it's a compliment when someone calls him woke. Listen.
If woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine, well, dude, call me woke as you want. I'm not for stupidity. But I am woke, motherfucker, and I love it.
Oh dear, he swore. He swore that'll win over the woke. He's a regular Huey Newton of the Hamptons. Here's my theory. Wokeism is a contagion. Stern got it from Jimmy Kimmel, his new best friend, and Kimmel got it from his wife, and his wife got it from where you get all infections, a toilet.
Greg is more than happy to point out that somewhere between his old leather jacket and his current Netflix-approved hair, Howard Stern traded rebellion for a reserved seat at the same cocktail parties he used to mock. Gutfeld calls this the Great Transformation, wherein the man who built an empire out of unapologetic vulgarity now spends his time giving sanitized takes that would hardly raise a serviette in a dentist's waiting room.
Incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300-400 million not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comics, whether it's Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Michael Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then they went woke. It's not a chicken or egg thing there. You know what order it came. So I call this BFR. It's blackface reparation.
This is amusing to Greg. It's like seeing a lion join a petting zoo. The man who built his career uttering the unsayable and lived for controversy is suddenly whispering moderate ideas as if he fears someone in the backseat might be offended. Greg reminds us that Stern once took pride in being the voice of the outsider, the person who spoke when no one else dared.
Watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you. I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of.
Oh my God.
There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
So a guy who's supposed to be funny for a living now claims her candid.
The former FCC irritant, Howard Stern, now sounds more like a spokesperson for Hollywood's elites than a dissident. He used to rage against the machine, but now he reads its press releases like holy texts, thanks it, and agrees with it. What happened to Howard Stern is the question Gutfeld keeps circling back to. This isn't just aging, it's a complete identity transplant. Stern didn't evolve, he surrendered. Gutfeld likens it to a punk musician now writing jingles for gluten-free cereal. with bland virtue signaling replacing edge and fury. Stern once made fun of fakeness for sport, easily dismantling phony celebrity personas. That's where the irony stings most. Now he's become exactly the polished, theatrical figure he once destroyed in seconds on live radio.
Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like, when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country.
Hold on. I need a minute.
Stern now sounds like he's reading from a Hollywood consultant's checklist, carefully hitting every acceptable opinion in the right order. The man who once took pride in offending everyone now speaks like a walking press release, trying hard to offend no one. Gutfeld notes that Stern's once chaotic studio, full of unpredictability and laughter, now feels like a politically correct therapy circle, scripted, sanitized, and safe. The rebellion is gone, all that remains is fear. Stern is no longer protecting his edge, he's avoiding criticism. Greg explains that fame softens people. Once you have everything, you start fearing the loss. Stern, who once spit on approval, now craves it like a contestant on a talent show. Simply put, Stern didn't just grow old, he got scared. Scared of losing the spotlight.
In Stern's previous career that could withstand this modern witch hunt that he now embraces. So this is a form of restitution. Maybe he says, if I'm woke too, the crocodile will eat me last, but they always do eat. But I get it. He flipped from populist to elitist because now he's with elitists. He's living in the Hamptons. What would the Stern of now?
Afraid of losing sponsors, Stern sacrificed boldness for safety and then dressed it up as maturity. That's when the hypocrisy began. Gutfeld reminds us that Stern built a career by mocking sensitivity and making a fortune off brutal honesty. Now, he lectures the world about empathy. The same man who thrived on conflict now avoids it in the name of civility. But what he's really protecting is the empire, the money, and legacy. Gutfeld compares it to a man pretending to be a chicken to guard his golden egg. Under the guise of social change, Stern has become cautious with wealth, not bold with truth.
Is insisting on free speech. They were the motherfuckers that were censoring everybody.
Right.
They wanted to lock Howard Stern up in jail.
I was on Howard Stern's show. He was great at that time, and then he went woke. And since he's gone woke, his ratings have gone down the tubes, and he sort of went anti-Trump for a couple of reasons.
They sued him. His parent company had to pay untold amounts of money. How much money did Howard Stern's company get fined? It was hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. Insane amounts of money. The government was trying to shut down.
The highlight of the comedy comes when Gutfeld mocks Stern's new habit of reprimanding edgy comedians, many of whom he once supported. Stern now warns them to be careful and not to offend. Gutfeld tilts his head and asks, what happened to the guy who made interns do humiliating stunts on air? From bandit to hall monitor, pioneer to pro clutcher, how did that happen? Greg even laughs at Stern's new fan base, the same crowd who once hated him. Now they barely buy the act. It's like watching someone apologize for everything that made them great, one dull interview at a time. The saddest part, as Gutfeld notes, is that Stern wasn't just a radio host, he was a cultural wrecking ball. He changed the rules, and now he's quietly retreating from the very empire he built.
You should hear what keeps him up at night.
This is what keeps me up at night. I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there.
Well, he's half right. We do need a wall. To keep out gang members, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, and Anna Navarro.
Stern is now trying to recast his legacy to be gentler, safer, and more award-worthy. Gutfeld calls it legacy laundering. Stern wants to be remembered as a wise mentor instead of a chaos merchant. But rewriting history doesn't erase it. According to Greg, Stern didn't have to surrender to grow. He could have matured without losing what made him unique. Instead, he adopted the same costume, every late-night host reading from the same script. It's not just funny, it's tragic. The man who once taught a generation to speak freely now warns them to watch what they say. Gutfeld delivers the final punchline. Stern wasn't censored, he censored himself. That, says Greg, is the real joke, not hate heartbreak. The fan watching his hero become the very thing he once ridiculed.
I always hate that argument, like, what happened to the old Stern, or what people have changed. That's not what this is about. It's a weird disconnect.
Well,
What?
he hasn't changed.
No.
People have been calling him insane for 40 years.
Yeah,
It
that's
just used to be, this guy's nuts. And now they're like, oh, we're worried about Howard. He needs.
Having grown up with the old Stern, Gutfeld genuinely wonders what became of the man who once said what no one else dared, in typical Gutfeld fashion. The critique is witty, brutal, and sharp because nothing stings like the truth dressed as comedy. Stern, once the fearless voice, now wears a suit, sips herbal tea, and asks the world to take him seriously for behaving, but Greg isn't finished. Stern no longer challenges guests, he nods along as they share rehearsed anecdotes. Gutfeld likens it to a rebel band from the 90s now playing acoustic sets at wine tastings. The danger is gone, the edge is gone. All that remains is a stage and a man too afraid to leave it. Gutfeld can't help but laugh at the transformation as Stern poses as the wise elder, offering gentle reflections instead of hard truths.
But Stern being holed up in his house that long, it explains a lot of things. Like how you forget how other people live, especially in hard times like a pandemic. For the longest time, 2 years in fact, the same time Stern's been AWOL, I wondered where he went. Not physically, but mentally. I bet you did too. Remember his screeds about COVID? They were epic and angry and not to mention wrong.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say it's mandatory to get vaccinated? F them, their freedom. I want my freedom.
Once the king of blunt honesty, Stern now sounds like he's reading from a publicist's script. Gutfeld observes Stern, once proud of his authenticity, now operates like a human press release, polished, cautious, and desperate for approval from the elites who once loathed him. Gutfeld compares it to a retired pirate enforcing curfew at a beach. Resort Stern, once bold and abrasive, now tiptoes around controversy in padded slippers. The biggest shift, Greg notes, is his audience once made up of blue-collar misfits, now media elites and activists who once called him toxic. That's not growth, Greg says it's betrayal. Stern used to ridicule Hollywood's fake causes and friendships, now he celebrates them. He doesn't challenge the mob, he checks in with it, and the real irony? Stern wants applause for acting like he never changed, but the old fans remember. And the old tapes, they're still louder than he'll ever be again.